नमस्कार. प्रभात. राजभाषा संचालनालय गोवा आणि राष्ट्रीय अनुवाद मिशन केंद्रीय भाषा संस्थान यांच्या संयुक्त विद्यमाने अनुवाद कौशल्य या विषया अंतर्गत या व्याख्यानमालेचे आयोजन केले आहे. या व्याख्यानमालेत मी अभिषेक राजेंद्र परब सर्वांचे स्वागत करीत आहे. आजच्या माहिती आणि तंत्रज्ञानाच्या युगात अनुवादाची नितांत आवश्यकता आहे. अनुवाद हे केवळ भाषाविषयक आदान-प्रदान प्रक्रिया नसून विविध देशीय आणि विविध भाषक मानवी समूहांना तो जोडणारा सांस्कृतिक बंध आहे. सांस्कृतिक, आर्थिक, वैज्ञानिक विकासामध्ये अनुवाद महत्त्वाची भूमिका बजावतो. अनुवादाचे विविध आयाम आणि कौशल्य जाणून घेणे हे सदर व्याख्यानमालेचे प्रयोजन आहे. आजच्या सत्राला आम्हाला डॉक्टर आदित्य कुमार पांडा हे मार्गदर्शक म्हणून लाभले आहेत. डिटर्मिनंट्स ऑफ ट्रान्सलेशन या विषयावर ते व्याख्यान संबोधणार आहे. व्याख्यानाचे स्वरूप 30 तासांचे असेल. तदनंतर प्रश्नोत्तरी होईल. या व्याख्यानासंदर्भात काही प्रश्न असल्यास तुमचे प्रश्न कमेंट बॉक्सच्या माध्यमातून तुम्ही पोस्ट करू शकता. आता मी राजभाषा संचालनालयाचे संचालक श्री प्रसन्न आचार्य यांना प्रास्ताविकपर भाषण करावे अशी विनंती करतो.
नमस्कार, तुमका सगळ्यांक येवकार. The Directorate of Official Language is established for development and implementation of official language in the state of Goa. The core competency of the department includes imparting training of basic knowledge of Konkani language, so also assisting various departments of state and central government in translation of various documents including acts, rules, schemes, citizen charters, etc. The department has also taken the initiative of coining of scientific and technical terms in Konkani language in collaboration with Commission for Scientific and Technical Terminology, New Delhi. Some of these are already published and others are at final printing stage. The department publishes research-oriented books. This department has also taken lectures on basic Konkani language and language orthography. This department is in the process of preparing a basic learner's course in Konkani language and printing it in book form. Since translation work has tremendous potential in the era of social networking and artificial intelligence, it was felt necessary to collaborate with National Translation Mission, Central Institute of Indian Languages, Mysuru, and conduct lecture series as a part of promotion of translation culture and emerging translation industry among the budding translators as well as amateur and professional translators. The lecture series aims to create awareness about translation, develop skills of translation, above all, improve quality of the translation by facilitating the translators to find key to the minds of the author of the material which is translated, retaining the soul of the original work in the body of the translation undertaken by the translators. I am optimistic that this lecture series will benefit the budding translators and will be a turning point in creation of the translation industry. Thank you.
थँक्यू सर. राजभाषा संचालनाचे वरिष्ठ भाषांतरकार श्री सॅबी फर्नांडिस हे आजच्या सत्राचे मार्गदर्शक डॉक्टर आदित्य कुमार पांडा यांची ओळख आणि विविध क्षेत्रामधील त्यांची कामगिरी यांचा परिचय करून देतील. मी सॅबी फर्नांडिस यांना विनंती करतो की त्यांनी सरांची ओळख करून घ्यावी.
नमस्कार. आयज आमी डॉक्टर आदित्य कुमार पांडा हांचे लेक्चर आयकतले. तांचे हांगासर थोडीशी वळख म्हणल्यार डॉक्टर आदित्य कुमार पांडा हे मूळ ओडिशा राज्यांतले आनी ताणें आपली MA इन लिंग्विस्टिक्स जाल्यार ट्रान्सलेशन ऑफ सायंटिफीक टेक्स्ट इन ओडिया लँग्वेज ह्या विशयाचेर आपली PhD केल्या. डॉक्टर आदित्य कुमार पांडा फाटली 13 वर्सां सावन मैसूरचे नॅशनल ट्रान्सलेशन मिशन सेंट्रल इन्स्टिट्यूट ऑफ इंडियन लँग्वेजीस हांगासर JRP एकेडमीक ओडिया लँग्वेज म्हूण काम करतात. ताणें आयज मेरेन अणकार आनी भासविज्ञान ह्या विशयाचेर कितलेशेच राष्ट्रीय आनी आंतरराष्ट्रीय सेमिनारांनी आपले पेपर सादर केल्यात. तशेंच कितल्याशाच मॅगझिनांनी आपले रिसर्च पेपर्स छापून हाडल्यात. CIILान छापिल्ले लॉंगमॅन पियर्सन इंग्लीश ओडिया डिक्शनरीचे ते एक सहयोगी संपादक आसात. तशेंच NTMच्या ट्रान्सलेशन टुडे मॅगझिनाचे ते असिस्टंट एडिटर आसात.
धन्यवाद sir. Today Dr. Aditya Kumar Panda will speak on the topic Determinants of Translation. I would like to request you sir to guide us on the said topic.
Yeah,
Thank you. Sir.
thank you. Thank you all. It was a pleasure to listen to all of you. Good morning to all. All I can treat you all as my friends. Okay. Uh, let's get at the topic. What is there on the board today? And I have prepared it PPT, and you can see it is like a notice board. And it is pinned. I think am I audible to all? Hello. Hello.
Yes sir.
Yeah, I am audible.
Yes sir. We can
Yeah.
hear you.
Okay. Yeah. So let's get at the business. Okay. Determinants of translation. As actually I was listening to Konkoni, and I was, I was getting, most of the words, that were used from Sanskrit, and I was able to understand. And I thought, I was thinking, while the initial, the discussion, the initial introduction was on, I was thinking, determinants of translation. What can be, the equivalent in Hindi or in Sanskrit? I can say anuvadak ka nirdharak. I can say, we can translate. I don't know how would you translate into Konkani. Determinants of translation. Anuvad ka nirdharak. I don't know. Okay, that you have to tell me, or you can do an exercise and you can like, what can be the Konkani version of determinants of translation. What am I going to do here? I will be, introducing various factors that determine what a translation is. What am I going to do here in the next 1 hour? I will be dealing with many causal factors that determine the form and function of translation. Okay, I will I will try to see the jargons those are used in translation studies and linguistics. I will try to simplify most of the points that I will put forward. Let's start. Okay. Well, yeah. I have a lot of questions for you. Actually, I prefer a session should be more interactive, but we are online, so it may be difficult for us to interact. But still, I have some questions for you to think over. Okay, look at this extract from a text. I am very careful while using the attribute of a text. I am saying look at this text. Look at this extract from a text. What is written there? He kissed his closed eyes and stood up. Balutha, with his back against a mangosteen tree, watched her bucket. She had a dry rose in her hair. She turned to say it once again. Nal, nal, Tomo. This is from the famous text, The God of Small Things. Most of you, might have read this text. This is a popular text, and this is the last, you know, paragraph of this text. I have a question. Is the above paragraph a translation? Can you think? Can you call this a translation? Yeah, you can wonder, you can think, yeah, because there is a non-English word, nale. And after nale, there is another, its English translation, tomorrow has been. Can we call this a translation? No, because the much of the text is in English, only one word is in, you know, uh, one word is a non-English word. We can't call this a translation. Then I have another question for you. Now you are familiar with this stanza, and you can say, you can think, you can immediately, directly, you can tell me what is this? Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls. I think you all must be, aware of this stanza. This is from Tagore's Gitanjali. We all know who is our Tagore and what is Gitanjali, you know, and how he wrote Gitanjali, how Gitanjali got, the Nobel Prize, right? All these things we know. And if I ask, by writing this stanza, if we ask you, you can immediately you can respond to it. Yes, this is a translation. But what about the last slide, the last stanza, the last paragraph, the last extract we had on the last slide? Is that a translation? No, or yes? This is a translation. This is perfect. This is perfectly a translation because we know what is Gitanjali. We know how Tagore wrote it. We know it was translated from Bangla to English, right? We are aware of the process behind this text, but you may not be aware of, the process behind the God of small things. Then I have, I want to give you another two lines from a Hindi text. Okay, I'm using the word text because, I want your response on it. You know, and I am reading this, and now let's see how many of you can, recognize, this as a translation or as an original writing. है बसंत की ऋतु कठोरतम बंध्या धरती से उपजाति नई सुमन. Hmm? I think the people who are in Hindi literature, or who are who has the knowledge of Hindi literature in 20th century, hmm, they might tell us what is this. In bracket, I have given the name Narsingh Srivastava, and the text title is Bandha Dharti. Can you my friends who are from who are from English literature and my friends who are from Hindi literature, they can associate this Hindi these Hindi lines with you know uh, their source equivalents. You think from which text this has been translated into? Now I am using the word translated into, quote unquote. You say Bandhya Dharti. Can you translate this Bandhya Dharti into Konkani? Can you translate Bandhya Dharti into English? Yes. Yeah. This is the Westland. T.S. Eliot's The Westland. translated by Nursing Srivastava. And this is edited by Amitabh Bachchan's father, Harivansh Rai Bachchan. And if you have read T.S. Eliot's The Westland, the first line, April is the coolest month. Look at the Hindi line, है बसंत की ऋतु कठोरतम. You look at this rhythm, how it follows those texts. And this is a translation. But if I don't, if I have not read this text in Hindi, if I don't know, T.S. Eliot's The Westland, if I don't know how Narsim Srivastava translated, The Westland into Hindi, then I may not be able to say this is a translation. I can simply say this is a Hindi text. But R.N. Tagore's Gitanjali, I can say this is a translation because I know about Tagore. I know about Gitanjali. I know the process. Okay, let's proceed. I have another question. How do you identify translation? We are on the same track. Okay, because first thing is to identify how does it exist, then to identify its attributes, then we need to think over what are the causal factors, what are the determinants of the entity called translation. How do you identify it? What are the identity markers of it? If I ask you, have you read War and Peace by Elevation and Mar? Nobody will answer. Have you read The Stranger by Stuart Gilbert? Nobody can answer. Because you don't know who are Elevation and Mar. You don't know who is Stuart Gilbert. But you have read the text The Stranger. You have read the text War. You might be thinking, oh, is there any other War and Peace by some other writers? You might be thinking, is there another text called The Stranger? Because we are familiar with War and Peace by Tolstoy, not by these guys. How do we know? You must have read War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy and The Stranger by Albert Camus. I think these texts have been translated into Konkani. I think so. These might have been. These are famous texts. But you may not be aware of the fact that Tolstoy wrote in Russian and Camus wrote in French. But how do we know? I have read Camus' The Stranger in English. In my post-graduation, I was thinking, okay, Camus wrote in English. But after some years, my assumption was wrong. Camus wrote in French. It was translated into English. I don't know I don't know about the translator. How do we know a text is a translated text? We know from the inside page or back cover or somewhere in the book that it is a translation. Isn't it? In the translator, a text, the first identity marker of a text is a translation, is either on the back cover it is written translated by, or on the front cover it is written translations into this language by this, or somewhere on the title page translated by. These are the identity markers, locations of translation features. Otherwise, if it is not written, you may not know. Or in some texts you may get a translator's note that proves it's a translation. If these features are not there, then you can treat a text as an original writing because you don't know. Either these features are there and you know these features, and or if these features are not there, but if you know about the process behind the text, then you can say it's a translation or it's a translation. Okay. So how are you aware of a translation? Every day, you get to see many signboards written in English, Konkani, in Hindi or in any other Indian language, right? If you look at, in the Konkani version of, of your institutions, you know, uh, uh, name and other things. You know, if you go to a bank, you will get the forms both in English and in Hindi or English and in Konkani. I don't know in Konkani it is available. I don't know. But I can say, regarding English and Hindi. But have you ever thought that those documents, those books are translations? No? Am I problematizing the definition of translation? Think, think about all these things. It's not written in the signboard or in the documents that those are translations. On a bank draft, first side, on the front page it will be in English, the back page it will be in Hindi. Demand draft, and the back side will be mang draft, something they have translated. But nowhere it is written, translated by. It is only in the books. It is only in the articles. It is only in the newspapers, you know, that it is written that somebody has translated this, translated by. But these are also examples of translations. This side Konkani, that side English. Source text is there, target text is there. Somebody has translated. Can't you call this a translation? Example of translation? Yes, it's an example of translation. But how do you know? How do you know? How do you associate? How do you know, my friends? How do you know Gitanjali is a translation from Bangla to English? How do you know, War and Peace is a, War and Peace in English is a translation? How do you know, Camus, the stranger in English is a translation? Because you are aware of the basic aspects that constitute a translation. And what are the basic aspects? Source text, source language, target text, target language. We can make this four also into two. You can say only source text and target text, because source text includes, because it is in a source language, and target text also includes, it is into a target. So our four determinants of translation. We have got now four determinants of translation: source text in source language, target text, and target. This is, everywhere you must be knowing, this is a fact, and people, the scholars from translation studies or from literature, they have been teaching, translation is a process. The product is a result of the process. One could concentrate more on translation as a process. Although, whatever we just, whatever examples I gave, just, 2 minutes before in my previous slides, those were, sorry, those were taken from, you know, books, which are the products of a process. But here I will be focusing more on translation as a process. Because it is a process that is the most important element in translation. It's the journey actually. It's the journey that is more important. than the destination in the field of translation. What do you do in translation? How do you translate? What do you think while translating? What are the decisions you take in a translation? What are the problems you face while translating? Answer to all such questions will be attempted at the discussion of translation process. And while discussing about the process, that will give us, its determinants, निर्धारक, अनुवाद, अनुवाद का निर्धारक. चलिए आगे बढ़ते हैं. Yeah. What are the things do we translate from text? This session would have been more interesting and interactive, had we met, somewhere physically, not online, but still we can make it. What are the things do we translate from a text? Words, sentences, paragraph, text, discourse. Simple, very simple. What do we translate when we translate words or words in sentences? I think most of my friends are translators. You might have translated something, may not be a book, but something you must have translated. Otherwise, you might not have this interest to attend such session, or we are into the field of translation and we are curious to know about translation because we are in the process of translating something. We have done something, or we are doing something, or we will do something. What do we translate when we translate words or words and sentences? We translate words and sentences in the world. When I say world, this includes everything. This includes, the product, the process, the environment, the assignee, the assignment, the agents, language, the language family, the everything about language. When I say words, we translate words, sentences in the world. What do the words give us about the word and sentences we translate? Why should I say? Or why do I say we translate words or sentences in the world? It means if there is no word, we can't translate. Of course, you can't translate. What do the words give us about the word or sentences we translate, my friends? What do the words give us? The words you live in. What do the Konkani words give you? I say Konkani words. Okay, there is no Konkani word. Konkani words. Okay. When I'm saying words, attentive, I'm referring to more than the physical world. Okay. What is that? What does the world give us? What do the worlds give us? You talk to one another. You listen to others. Others listen to you. How do you understand them in a language? You go to a tea stall for a cup of tea, not for getting medicine, isn't it? Your words in a classroom differ from your words in your home. The way you behave in office, that is not the way you behave in your home. How do you differentiate? Hmm? How do you differentiate? See, we are in a session. We are in a lecture series here. We are in an online platform. A lecture is going on. A discussion is going on. We all are sitting here, listening. Hmm? But what has made you, to sit and to listen? What is the linking point that cannot be avoided? If someone does miss it, then the intended meaning may go away. What is that? How do you link yourself to others and to your world? What is that? What is that? The most central, the most important determinant of translation, that is the context. So I asked you, what do the words give us for translation? The words give you the context. And what is the basic definition of context? The situation in which something happens and that helps you to understand it. The words that come just before and after a word, phrase, or statement and help you to understand its meaning. Right? We all understand what is context. Without context, you cannot translate. If you translate without context, then you may, your translation may be a mistranslation. Maybe it may, it may be a wrong translation also. So context is one of the determinants of translation that specifies. Remember, be attentive to my sentence here. Context is one of the determinants of translation that specifies, that prioritizes the meaning. Okay? If in English, if somebody says, I'm going to bank, how do you understand whether it is the financial bank or it is the river bank? How do you understand that? Because you and the speaker, the receiver and the speaker, you are in a particular context and time. And that context, he is saying, I am going to bank, and you understand, yes, he is going to financial bank. Right? So if you don't understand, if you are not in the context, but it may not be able to decipher its meaning. And what happens, when the speaker and the receiver, if they are not, in sync, we can say, if they are not in sync, what happens? I will give you examples after anything before slides. How do we understand the meaning in the context? Because context gives us meaning. Context is in between a speaker and a hearer, and it is present reciprocally. If you speak, so you listen. You listen, so you speak. Both decide the meaning of the context. How does the decision of inferring a meaning take place? But how do you decide? How do you decide? How are you able to understand my words here? How do you understand? In case of translation, it is the source. I have given a bracket. Source means source writer, source text, source tradition, source language, and the target in bracket, target user, target culture, society, target language, target tradition, bracket ends, who decide the meaning. The words give you the context gives you the meaning, and the meaning is decided, or mutually agreed upon, or the meaning is understood reciprocally with the help of source writer, source text, source tradition, source language, target text, target culture, target language, target tradition, target norms, etc. Okay. So a context is always a mutually agreed and sharing element that has been established by society. We speak in a context that others can understand. So acquired understanding conventional. You are sitting here in a discussion, you are listening to a discussion. You are maintaining a kind of decorum. You are listening, you are understanding something. And that act of understanding something, how have you acquired? How have you got it? You have been taught, you have been brought up, conventionally, traditionally by your educational system, by your family, by your culture, you have been brought up. You have got quote unquote acquired understanding conventionally. A context is only to others. From its creation, it is for others. A context in translation is for the other of others. Am I sounding something more philosophical? Then let's come back. So it is to facilitate meaningful communication among the individuals in society, and a context in translation is to facilitate the same in all the society. Okay. Oh, am I think okay? Is the see that how do you prioritize the meaning of a particular source term? Hmm? See, a source word may have more than one equivalent in a target. I have given an example of the word duty. I think this is also there in Konkani. And when I say duty, you in Sanskrit we have many equivalents of the word duty: dharma, karma, kartavya. I have given three examples. Three. I think in Konkani also you have this dharma, karma, and kartavya, or we might have something like that. But while the duty is used in a particular context or in a particular text, how do you decide, whether the duty is dharma, whether the duty is karma, or whether the duty is kartavya? How do you decide? Because there has been an established tradition of using each of the equivalents in their respective contexts. And this established tradition prioritizes the possible equivalence as the primary or the secondary. So if I am searching the equivalent of duty, first I have to look at in which context it is used, what is the field, in which field it has been used, and what is the context, whether in this particular context it will be dharma, or it will be karma, or it will be kartavya. I have to decide. The understanding that I have got conventionally, traditionally, through my established traditions, I will prioritize the equivalent, which equivalent should go with the source word duty. Okay. Then I have another question. So so far we learn context is one of the determinants of translation. Next question to you: can you escape from your established tradition while translating something? Can you escape from the society to which you belong while translating? Can you escape from the culture to which you belong while translating? If yes, your translation will be rejected. Because if you don't follow the norms of your society, if you don't follow the norms of your culture, then your community may reject your translation. You might have, you know, you will be you will be criticized. Your translation will be rejected. There will be various articles criticizing your translation. So these things happen in most of the Indian languages. If if a translator does not follow a particular norm, or if it is not accepted by a particular community or society. What am I saying here? I am hinting at censorship and translation. Okay, censorship is a you know very you know very serious. And with this, I'm giving you some examples from a popular text hmm, by hmm, okay. See, a brief history of time by Stephen Hawking. This text has already been translated into many languages. Hmm. Uh, what is the first sentence of this text? A well-known scientist, in brackets, some say it was Bertrand Russell, once gave a public lecture on astronomy. When this text was translated into Greek, you will be surprised to read the first sentence of the Greek translation of this text. What is it? You see, Alice in Wonderland once was giving a lecture about astronomy. How did the translator change a well-known scientist, into Alice in Wonderland? And this text in Greek, it was a hit. Why did this happen? Why did this happen? You know, just in the last slide, I was telling you, the norms, target norms, the acceptability. If the translator has understood, you know, his or her audience well, then he or she can give a very good, acceptable, well recognized translation. Why did the translator or even if the publisher also played a role here? Why did they choose Alice in Wonderland? Because Alice in Wonderland is more popular than the philosopher Bertrand Russell. So what happens? Who determines what words should be used? Who determines the form and function of the translation? Target, uh, target speakers, target community, right? Target user, hmm, target tradition that drives it. And also, I will add here market. You know, market also determines the form and function of your translation. You know, if you are thinking about a publisher, publisher may look at a market only, and for the sake of market, you know, the publisher can do many changes to the process. While we are talking about target norms and target users, target tradition, what happens? Uh, there are various uh, mindsets. You can get you know a you know liberal mindset. You can also get a conservative mindset. In most of the modern Indian languages, we have these mindsets. One group will follow, they go for translation of each and every source text. Another group who are liberal, open-minded, they may not go for each and every the translation of each and every source. Sometimes conservative, group, they suggest a very strict, guideline for translation. Whereas open-minded, open-mindedness brings, a kind of acceptance, you know, which can be accepted or which is used more colloquially. Let's accept it. So this, this conflict is always there in most of the India. I can give you one example here. So, there are languages where the words used in computer or internet, you know, the languages have given target equivalent for each and every word. Suppose download, email, upload, update, mouse, everything. Even if the computer is also, given the equivalent as sangarak in Hindi, but people may not be using that. Sanganak has been given by a kind of a group of people okay, who want the translation of each and every source. But what is happening? What is the language in use? What is the word in use? You go to any Hindi state, in Hindi speaking state, you will be getting the transliterated form of computer used more. We also hear. I don't know whether you have translated the word computer into Konkani. If there is a expert or there is a scholar from the field of translation or a linguist who wants to have a kind of prescription. No, let there be a word. Let there be a word for the word computer in Konkani. Let's call it this. Let's translate this word like this, and let's use it quietly. This is also happening in many languages. Or a group of scholars get together and give new words for some those stuff. Right? This was actually happening while earlier it was the Department of Education and when the early stage of early stage of the development of a Commission for Scientific and Technical Terminology. They while they were preparing terminology, these things were happening. There were groups, there were conflicts because of these things. One is, we call it, a kind of purist approach, a kind of purist approach. Another one is a liberal approach. This, I don't know whether in Konkani also you have the same thing. But what happens, or what is happening is, I can give you example of, example from my mother tongue, Urdu. If I give a word for a mouse, they will laugh at me. They will not use it. You know? But in other, in some languages, we can give, they have given a word and it is in use. So it also depends on the language attitude of the target community, the target speakers. It depends on the target. Okay. There are a lot of such interesting examples, but we don't have much time. Okay, let's proceed. So, what are the determinants we have got so far? Context, source in bracket, we have social, 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 social culture, social tradition, and target user language, target culture tradition. Okay, we have got the most important determinants of translation so far. Now, what is missing here? What is missing here? Can anyone guess? Who does? Who thinks? Who acts? Who writes? Who translates? Who is the agent? Who is the causal factor behind the translation? What is missing there? Someone who belongs to a language, a culture, a society, a tradition, an institution who understands another language, who is aware of another tradition, culture. Who is this? You. I mean the translator. Translator is also determinant. Translator is also a determinant. You decide, you determine, whether to adhere to the target norms or not. You decide whether to use Sanganak for computer or not. You decide. You accept. And you are well aware of the consequences. If I do like this, what will happen? If I do like that, what will happen? Okay. You also is a leader. Okay. And you here, I mean a translator. Okay. You, a translator, hmm, a determiner of a translation. You are a. It is the translator who activates all the aspects discussed above to do with us. Among all the factors, remember whatever we have discussed so far, among all these factors, translator is only the being who acts and reacts, who accepts and denies. So the translator is the center. Hmm? Can we say the translator is the center of translation? I don't know. We can say. Okay, so now what am I going to do? I'll be giving you some scholarly essays on determinants of translation. Actually, in the field of translation studies, there are various scholars who have written about the identity of translation, factors behind translation, what is a translation, what are the aspects of translation. Okay? But I am giving you the 10 fundamental essays, that will give you more ideas on the determinants of translation. You can get this PPT from from our organizer, okay? Because this will be the list of 10 scholarly essays, and you can get all these essays freely available in Google. You can freely download these essays from Google. Okay. And I will just introduce you regarding these essays, and I will. I have. I want to give you about one of the uh, seminal essays that has become most important actually in the field of translation studies, and various departments of translation studies. They have been prescribing this essay, and they have been discussing on this essay. That is Walter Benjamin's The Task of the Translator. Okay, so Walter Benjamin, I actually, this essay is more of philosophy than of any kind of use for any practical purpose. But still, we can see where the position of translation. So where Benjamin looks at translation not as something derivative, not as something secondary. There has been a discussion, there has been a traditional debate over translation is secondary, source text is primary, such kind of binary opposition. Some people think about this, and they have been in debate. But actually, one of the post-structuralists you can call Walter Benjamin, who has given the equal status to translation, and he says translation supplements the original. So a original text must have translatability. Otherwise, it is very means otherwise it may not have potential for being translated into. Go through the task of the translator by Walter Benjamin. Okay, but it is actually may not be much of use for practical purpose. There is another seminal essay by one of the American philosophers, one, and that is meaning and translation. It's a very small essay, but highly. What he says, meaning is in speaker's mind, in determinancy of reference. How do you interpret if the speaker is not there? If the source is not there, you know, Gavagai in Arunta, one may interpret it as Rabbit in English. These are the lines from this essay. you know. And I have given you another example from a, from 20th century, you know, 20th century, affairs. At the time of the Second World War, Japanese Prime Minister Suzuki said Mokusatsu in a reply against the Potsdam Declaration. And this Japanese word has more than one. Okay, I think you all are aware of this, incident, and how the atom bomb fell. Okay, and regarding the fall of atom bomb and all those things, you are I think you are well aware of the history and how it happened, who were responsible, and all those things. Okay. So this Japanese, while into the Potsdam Declaration, Japanese Prime Minister Suzuki said Mokusatsu. And what does this mean? This Japanese word has more than one. And what are the meanings? Take no notice of one of the meanings, another meaning. Treat anything with silent contempt. Ignore by keeping silence. Remain in a wise and masterly practice. International news agencies spread the translation of Suzuki's Mokusatsu as not worthy of God. And US took this translation as something authoritative and something as the Japanese authorities denial of the declaration, and this caused the dropping of the atom bomb on Hiroshima. The meaning of this word was in Suzuki's mind. He knew what he had meant, but the interpreter, the translator, meant something else. No doubt the word is ambiguous. What the media interpreted is one of the meanings, but it is not the meaning what Suzuki meant for. I have given you this example in a cheese when you can see it physically present in front of you, or you have a linguistic acquaintance with it, you know about it, its context, but you have never seen it, but experienced it, but you can trust. So here, what is the question? Can I translate something only, only when I can see that, when I can experience it? Hmm? Can I translate, the, our, suppose the word Sindhu, Sindhu, I think you must be aware of it, you all know it. Can I translate Sindhu only when I can see, when I can experience it? Or without seeing it, without experiencing it, I can translate this, cultural term. This is the question. What should we do? Do we need do we need that experience? Or, and I don't think that, without seeing also, without experiencing also, we can translate. No, if you read the in English writings in Indian novels in English translation. Yeah, this has become a type of writing and genre. So Indian writings, in English translation. Many translators have, retained the cultural terms as they are. Thus, they have translated. Sindhu, many of our writers, they have translated it as Sindhu. And some other translators have given the English word vermilion color, that vermilion. So this debate is always there. What should we do? What approach should we adopt? But the most favorable approach is retain the cultural term, transliterate the cultural term, and give a note somewhere. Give a note. Most of the knowledge texts, NTM has played the word of knowledge text translation all over India and all over the world also now. Okay. Most of the knowledge texts are coming under informative type. And expressive type, literary texts, all kinds of literary texts. And what is operative text? Where it requires an action. If I say switch on the fan, please, somebody has will stand up and go and switch on the fan. It's operative. So each translation strategy. You cannot apply the strategies used in explicit type texts, you know, in the informative type text. The way a scientific text is transmitted, that is not the way a literary text is transmitted. So demands, text type demands its own strategy of process. How do you translate? That the way, and the language in use, the terminology in use, text type determines. You cannot use, a scientific terms in a literary text, right? But these days, what is happening, when we are talking about interdisciplinary area, when knowledge, are going beyond a particular boundary, when a knowledge is becoming interdisciplinary in nature, there you also need a different kind of approach for your translation. Right? I can give you here, an example. Many of our translators or terminologies or lexicographers, sometimes they don't take the text type into account, and sometimes they translate a scientific text in a literary mode. It becomes expressive, but there is you know there is a chance of loss of information. This actually invites another lecture actually, because we need more time on this. Okay, but remember, before going to translate any text, we have to look at what kind of text it is, whether it is from science, whether it is from literature, whether it is from advertisement, whether it is of some other type, and that type, and in many of our major Indian languages, each of these types has established tradition, and that tradition determines what words should be used, what language should be used, what style should be followed. Okay. This is more philosophical. Let's not spend much time on this, but remember this glance. Let's give a glance here. At a glance, judge tell us the hermeneutic motion. Hermeneutic act of translation is a movement and motion through four stages. He has devised trust, aggression, incorporation, restitution. He is saying, firstly, the translator surrenders to the source language text, trusts it to mean something. Without trust, you cannot get the meaning. If you believe, then only you get the meaning. Secondly comes aggression of taking something away from the source language text. Thirdly, the translator incorporates that something in the target language text. And here he starts, so he produces an assimilative translation. Fourth move is restitution, where the translator may produce a text balancing source language, cultural, and target language culture. It is actually more theoretical and philosophical. Let's proceed. I will not spend much time on actually on this. Itamar Ivan Johar, another scholar in the field of translation studies, where he is saying about literary policy system, the position of translation in the literary policy system. You can say history of a literature is mostly the history of translated. If you write a history of Konkani literature, I think somebody might have written, you will find there must be the history of translation in that particular writing. Translated literature occupies either a central position or a peripheral position in target literary system. This also has happened. I can, if you look into history of Nepali literature, where what has happened, the translation from English literature has given a new form of writing, you know, into the Nepali poly system. NTM has, published purpose of your translation. What is the purpose of your translation? Where are you translating? For whom are you translating? They. For whom are you translating? They also determine your translation. What is the purpose of your translation? Why are you translating? That also determines the translation. I'm translating a text for children, right? I'm translating a text for postgraduate students. You know, these things, both these acts involve different translation strategy and different norms. What is the purpose? Why are you translating? There are, many censored texts. There, there are many original writings which have been censored. And particular in many countries, in many nations, you can get, you know, communities, who actually propagate a particular, ideology, and to propagate that particular ideology, any text that supports that ideology, they will definitely take that text and translate and distribute in their community. This is another actually a topic, politics and translation. Hmm. You can go through, you can read this essay, you can download this essay. So, and also translation is determined by, who commissions it and how are the negotiations. Because when you are going to translate something, and for a publisher or for an institution or for an agency, the institution, they must have an agreement with you. And the agreement, there are clauses, what you have to do. You have to obey. If you don't obey those clauses, they may not take you as a translator. If you are translating for Sahitya Academy, if you are translating for National Translation Mission, if you are translating for Penguin, if you are translating for Oxford University Press, hmm, you they have particular agreement, and in the agreement it is written, how should we deal with the text. Means no information should be deleted, omitted, modified, such clause, is there. So sometimes the form and function of your translation also depends on who gives you the translation. The agency, the commission, the institution that involves, that also determines what should be the form and function of the translation. Translation, the categories under the previous. Again, we are going more philosophically. Okay. So here under the previous, actually where in translation, we look at translation as rewriting. And I think, when you are saying translation as a rewriting, then our, literature, early literature, where, translations of Mahabharata, Ramayana, started, coming into Indian languages, and, made, a particular position in people's mind and heart. You know, there, whether, still in Odia, it is a debate whether, early literature, our actually we have Sarla Das Mahabharata. Sarla Das Mahabharata is an epic, okay, by our, poet, writer, Sarla Das, and still people, go on debating whether it is a translation or it is. But as per unrelated years, features of translation as rewriting, there you can include such kind of epic, where the target text is more of a kind of, transcreation than translation. Remember, my friends, we have been, we are always, because these are always overlapping, like translation, adaptation. These are many, such terms are there in the translation studies. But there is no hard and fast, technically defined hard and fast features of such concepts. So far, okay. Mm, yeah, I I think this is the last essay on the list of seminal essays that I have given on the slide. and that is Anthony Pym, another scholar in the field of translation studies. What he says, uh, there cannot be any universal typology of translation solution. Remember, my friends, we many times, we uh, do wrong actually while when we say or when we think that you know this translation should be you know should follow a particular strategy that has been followed by other translators, or it has been followed for some other text. He says that may not be possible. We may go wrong by thinking like the way a particular text has been translated, that may not be the way the same kind of text could be translated. You know, see the way Stuart Gilbert's uh, the way Stuart Gilbert translated The Stranger, hmm, that way may not be used. The strategy may not be used by Lewis and Hammer while translating Tolstoy's War and Peace. Each text, what he says, what Anthony Pym says, each text has its own, identity, its own feature. Each text demands an individual strategy, a separate strategy that may not be used for other texts. I can say here, each of you differs from one another, isn't it? You know, each of our voices differs from one another. If we are given, if we are here 30 to 40 people, and if we are given a particular text for translation, each of the translation will differ from one another. Or suppose there is a group of Konkani translators, and if you give a particular text to them, just one text to 40 Konkani translators, what will you find? You will get 40 translations of the same text. And that's why Anthony Pym says, there cannot be universal typology of translation solutions. Okay, so please, go through this essay. Hmm? So I think we are going to conclude. I will sum up here, okay, and see what happens. Lecture becomes when it becomes one way, it becomes monotonous actually, and online it is not, not possible to be more interactive also. But I actually want to make it more interactive. So let's sum up here. Translation is a heterogeneous entity. A translation is determined not by one factor. My friends, remember this. A translation is determined not by one factor, but by factors. Remember, I know I always use such words like word and words. You know, factor and factors. Remember this. A translation is determined not by one factor, but by factors. In bracket, I have given what are the factors. In a translation, one of the factors may dominate the other factors. Okay, but all the factors have roles in translation. What does this mean? In a particular translation, the target norm becomes important. In some other kind of translation, purpose becomes important. In some other kind of translation, source text information becomes important. So somewhere target community is important, target user is important. Somewhere the the source culture is important. Uh, sometimes the translator decide that no, let this source cultural terms be there. Let these source cultural concepts be there in target uh, text. So it is not one factor, that determines, but the factors. But in a particular translation, it is one factor that dominates other. But remember, all the factors have a role. Okay, so I think here I will conclude by, you know, uh, reading out my lines here. Oh, my translator, you live in a world with words in a time, but you translate words with words indefinite. Okay, thank you. Here I conclude. Thank you all. If I have some questions, I can answer it, or we can have a discussion. Yeah,
Thank you, sir, for a wonderful session. You have elaborately explained on the determinants of translation. Thank you very much, sir. Sir, we have one question.
yeah,
Context is one of the important determinants of the translation. Can you share an example of contextual mistranslation or elaborate this factor?
yeah. I think I have already given this example in the slide. Okay, when I was discussing about Wine's essay meaning and translation, uh, and I had also given you the example of bank. The word bank. If somebody says that I am going to bank, whether it is river bank or whether it is financial bank, and how do the receiver comes to a conclusion whether the speaker is going to the financial bank or going to a river bank. That is actually who determines that. That is determined by the context and the time, actually, the when the receiver and the speaker both are in. I had also given you uh, there are many actually contextual, where the context has not been where the context has not been taken into account, and the translation has is failed actually. You can go through, or I have given you the example of Mokusatsu, Japanese
Yes.
prime ministers, Mokusatsu, where the interpreter meant it something else. He could not he was not able to actually contextualize it, that what he might have meant. I have given you actually the slides. I have given you many examples of context and mistranslation. I can also give you, if I remember, there are yes, see, some I have lot of actual examples. If I go through, see, there is a translation of Quran, actually, Bhaktiar's translation of the Quran, and where she was referring to many words, and how the translator has translated. But actually, the purpose was different. Actually, when the male-dominated attitude actually became an important factor, and that translation version was different. So what happens? Mm, we can discuss it actually at length here, but I think time is very short. Am I is that okay?
So, we have 15 minutes time, so you can share your
Yeah, yeah,
experience.
yeah, yeah. So no, any other question is there?
No, sir, only one question.
Okay, yeah. So if the question is related to the context, exactly. So where what has happened? You see, hello, hello,
Yes, sir.
hello. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, sir. We can
Yeah,
hear you, sir.
yeah, yeah. So there are if you see many texts, actually, mostly religious texts. So if you go through the history of translation of religious texts, there you will get plenty of examples of uh, mistranslations, because of not understanding the context properly. I can give you, suppose there is a question, and there is a I can I have actually I was a reviewer for a particular type of text, where suppose there is a word called state. Okay, STATE, state. You know and the translator was translating that into Odia, my mother tongue. Okay, and the translator translated the word state as hmm, Rajya. Okay, without thinking whether the equivalent that he has given is appropriate in that field or in the particular text. Okay, STAT state. Hmm. What is that text about? See, we have discussed about Katrina's text types. So he was dealing with a science text, a physics, a text, from the field of physics. And how come, he translated the word state as Rajya? In that particular sentence, in that particular sentence, the word state actually should be translated as avastha. If you can understand this word, avastha. No, we call it avastha. I don't know how do you translate this into Konkani. So you may help me to translate into Konkani. Okay. So what happens here? The translator, did not think about what is the, the translator did not take the context into account. First, second mistake, the translator did not decide what kind of text it is. Whether he is dealing with a political science text, whether he is dealing with a text from history, or whether and what is the context there. It is, talking about, the state of metal actually, state of metal, and the translation become actually a mistranslation. It was a huge translation error, and I had to, give him, I have to, I had to put a red mark from the text of physics. It is a physics course related to physics, and the phrase is state of matter. In Hindi, how would you translate this? धातुओं का अवस्था or something. If you translate like that in Hindi, I don't know, but in Odia, yeah, it translated like dhatura avastha. And how can you think about, state as a political entity while you are translating a text from physics? This is, the problem. If you don't understand the context and if you don't understand the field of the text that you are translating. So there are a lot of examples, my friends. Okay. Yeah. Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Am I? So I think. Or should I give you more examples? Hello. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Uh, your elaborate explanation was definitely satisfied our viewers. Now I request you your final comment before we conclude our session.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. I actually first, this is a very good session for me, and I thank the organizer, and even in my organization is also collaborated here in collaborating with the department also. I thank you all, and translation in the field of translation, we are actually the field of translation is becoming more and more interdisciplinary in nature, and now the translation industry, if we say translation industry, actually what is happening is, localization, it is also at par with the localization industry, and it is mushrooming like anything in India these days. And I think, it is not limited to now the translation is giving so much opportunity to us to work for, you know, in our own mother tongues, and also for the market actually. So I can see two things in translation. One can choose translation as a profession. You can earn huge amount of money, if you choose translation as a profession. And many of us, many of of you must be doing this. And another one is that translation as a study of the research, as a research or as a study. So that is mostly academically oriented. So, but the thing is, translation is growing like anything. And I request you all, you know, to engage yourself as a translator somewhere here and there. This is not only to give you, it will give you a very good amount of money. At the same time, you will also work for your mother. The development of your language is happening. At the same time, you are also prospering material. You know, so this is, translation is such a field. It is not only in academics, it is also this time or that time. We all are lost. But the difference is somebody uses translation as a profession, somebody uses for communication, somebody uses for developing his or her skills, or somebody uses it to satisfy his academic pursuit. So my friends, translate and prosper. That's all. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. So for your valuable time.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.
Yeah. The next session will be on 1st September by Dr. Sunetra Sholapurkar. Topic intersemitic translation. या सत्राच्या शेवटी मी राजभाषा संचालनाचे कनिष्ठ लिपिक श्री सुदेश गिरप यांना विनंती करतो की त्यांनी आभार व्यक्त करावे. धन्यवाद.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, respected Aditya Kumar Panda, the resource person for today's lecture. It gives me immense pleasure to thank you on behalf of this directorate for enhancing our knowledge on translation skill. Your guidance will surely help the Padi translators. On behalf of the directorate, I would like to extend our sincere gratitude to the officer in charge of National Translation Mission and all academic and non-academic staff of NTM-CIIL Mysuru. I would like to thank Government of Goa, Honorable Chief Minister, Honorable Deputy Chief Minister and Minister for Official Language, and also Honorable Secretary of Official Language. We are grateful to all government departments and offices and government employees for participating in this lecture series. We are also grateful to all translators, interpreters, writers, teachers and students for your participation. I would also like to thank the staff of the Directorate for best arrangement of this lecture series within short span of time. My heartfelt gratitude to all our live streaming partners, Palash Agni Studios, and I would also like to thank print and electronic media for giving wide publicity to this lecture series. Thank you, one and all.